Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Jawing About the G-Men Giants Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jace Garcia. I'm joined with Sean Scanlon and Joe Aguirre. And do it. Let's dive right in to week 1 with the Cowboys. The Cowboys routing the Giants 35-17. Giants did not look good. A lot of holes on defense, as I'm sure we're going to talk about. And the Cowboys just threw all over us. So what did you guys think of the game? We'll start there.
I obviously thought that I was expecting a lot better, for sure. The defense definitely looked weak, especially in the secondary at the cornerback position. DeAndre Baker and Antonio Hamilton just got bullied all day by Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup. So I think it was a tough spot for DeAndre Baker because he was coming off an injury in his first ever career game, going against a good receiving core. So I think and splitting snaps with Hamilton, I think he was put in a tough spot. But I also think Antonio Hamilton, he's on the team for his special teams, but I don't think there's any reason he should be the number 1 cornerback, even in an injury-ridden secondary. And I also think Antoine Bethea didn't look great, and there's still no sign of any pass rush. So the defense definitely has a lot of question marks, but I think there's some optimism for the offense, who looked good and was driving the ball up and down the field against a great Cowboys defense.
I feel like this. The Giants aren't as bad as they looked, and the Cowboys aren't as good as they looked. The Cowboys are good, and the Giants are bad, but not to the extreme I think we saw. I'll say one thing about Antonio Hamilton, who was targeted 7 times and literally gave up 7 completions for 77 yards. He tweeted after the game, "It's some good constructive criticism in the negative comments. I truly appreciate them all. Got to be able to hear the good and the bad, no matter the way it's presented." He was god-awful. And I will say, for a rookie who got owned in his first game, to come out and tweet something like that tells me that this is a grown-up, that this is a grown man who knows how bad he was and wants to get better. That said, Sean nailed it. There was no pass rush to speak of. Nope. And we went into this thinking that might be the case. I think what we didn't count on was how the linebacking core was also terrible, which really left the secondary exposed, I think, in a big way. And it seemed like the further down the field the receivers ran, the more likely they were to get open against a better Giants secondary than what we had last year. But without any sort of pass rush, there's no way those 4 guys back there are going to be able to contain anybody. And I'm concerned that this thing's not going to get any better. The other big thing I saw was the offensive line had an 86.2 run grade. And Saquon, for some reason, only touched the ball 11 times. Yeah. Or ran the ball 11 times, I should say. Obviously, he got some. I don't understand the game plan here. I'm confused by this. We got rid of Beckham. Okay, that was a tough pill to swallow because we're running everything through Saquon. Is that how this is going? So. When does that start? I guess that I don't understand. Also, Eli threw 3 passes more than 10 yards in the first half, and one of them was that Hail Mary at the end. Yep. Come on. Yeah. I have a serious issue, not with Eli, not with the offense, not even with the defense. Pat Shurmur has really got me questioning everything about him. His play calling is god-awful. His assessment of the defense after the game was almost delusional, to the point where if my grandfather was talking like that, I'd put him in a home. Shurmur literally said, some things need to click. Really? That's what you saw? You feel like they were this close to it? No way. So I think that here's what I'm concerned about. Who is he trying to convince? Us? The fans? His players or himself? Yeah. That's what I'm not sure about.
Yeah, the defense was bad. The upside there, I guess you could say the run game, even though Ezekiel Elliott only practiced the Wednesday before. The three big guys up front, I guess, stopped the run. Ezekiel Elliott only had 80 so yards. But, yeah, the pass defense was the big problem. Gallup, who the hell is Gallup? 7 for 7, 158 yards. It's ridiculous. And Amari Cooper, I think Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper did a little bit better than they are supposed to do because they're playing for contracts, which makes sense. But what I came out with that was Kellen Moore looked like a god, but I don't think he is an actual offensive god. I think the Giants did play terrible. Like what you said, Joe, I don't think the Giants looked as bad as they looked, and I don't think the Cowboys are as good as they are. Now, talking about the Cowboys, obviously Ezekiel Elliott got his contract, didn't join the team till Wednesday, so he didn't get a lot of touches. Dak Prescott went off, the number one fantasy QB. So I do want to pose this question to you guys. Are the Cowboys a Super Bowl contending team this year?
Yeah, I would have to say yes right now, just because we're so early into the season, only week 1, where obviously you get a lot of overreactions, but it's just such a small sample size where, this is all we're going off is 1 week. And obviously in the 1 week they dominated the Giants. So, but they have the defense. It looks like this is going to be a big year for Dak. He had probably the best game of his career, on Sunday. Michael Gallup, looks like he's stepping up in his second year. They didn't even show what Zeke can do, really, because they didn't give him too many touches just because they went ahead so early that they didn't have to rely on the run game, and the offensive line looked great. So I see them as a Super Bowl contender. I think there's actually probably 2 Super Bowl contenders in the NFC East with the Eagles and the Cowboys. Obviously, the Eagles didn't look so great against the Redskins, but they had that great comeback win. Carson Wentz looked good in the comeback. So I think, they probably pose as Super Bowl contenders as of right now.
I think you say it's a small sample size, but it is and it's not. Because on paper, they look like a title contender.
Yeah.
And against the Giants, they look like a title contender. Now, let's see what they do in Washington. But, yeah, I think if they play like that every single week, yeah, that's definitely a Super Bowl contender. I would say this, though. I would probably wait a few more weeks before I decide whether Dak deserves whatever they're going to throw his way. Because, again, if you went off the Giants game, you want to make him the highest paid player in the NFL.
Yeah.
I would wait, and I would try it against a good defense before you start backing up the Brinks truck, or bringing in one of them big old checks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, it was literally just pitch and catch the whole game.
Oh, God, yeah. You didn't even really see much from him from a running standpoint. Yeah. He just pretty much sat back there like Tom Brady, just picking them apart. So you didn't really get the full Dak. And I'll tell you, he made some bad throws. I would have liked to have seen him moving around in the pocket just to sort of see where he is with some of those throws, where he is with some of the decisions that he makes kind of rolling out of the pocket. I think this game was almost too easy for him.
Yeah.
And I think from that angle, it's kind of hard to decide just how good these Cowboys are going to be.
Yeah, I get that. We had some key injuries during the game. Sterling Shepard is now questionable going into the Bills game when he's in the concussion protocol now. Kevin Zeitler, the big O-lineman, had a shoulder injury. It's expected to not be serious, but we'll see. Kareem Martin left the game early. Now he's listed as questionable. And Darius Slayton and Garrett Dickerson did not play. And a new story emerging earlier today is due to Sterling Shepard being in concussion protocol and Darius Slayton not playing. It looks like the Giants are going to bring back TJ Jones, which I thought he did well in the preseason. And I'm excited to see him back on the Giants, and I think he could help, especially seeing as how he knows the system and all that stuff and can really help. but injuries are something that we don't need right now, especially after that game.
Yeah, that's for sure. And they actually designated Kareem Martin to IR today, so he's going to miss the 8 weeks. That's another pass rusher that we miss out on. But like you said, bringing TJ Jones back because he has the familiarity in the offense, I think it's definitely a good step for the next 3 weeks since Tate's still going to be out and then Shepard's in the protocol. So, but I think that Cody Latimer and Benny Fowler had stepped up and had pretty good games. Like I said, I think that the offense looked a lot better than people thought, just because the execution maybe near the red zone and once they got to the Cowboys side of the field wasn't where it wanted to be, and a couple fourth and short stops that we didn't like to see. But it definitely helps that we bring in a receiver that knows the offense and could help us the next couple weeks going into games where all 3 games are winnable for us and we want to start off in a good spot. So that's what I think about that.
I think the Giants' biggest problem, and there's a lot of them, but I think the biggest problem is the lack of depth on this team. And I'm going to say it again. You got rid of Beckham. Wide receiver was already a concern. Obviously, Golden Tate's out for the first 4 weeks. Shepard obviously out with the concussion, and while Latimer and Fowler both played well, that's not your idea of a good 1-2 tandem. No. I mean, there's a reason why those guys are who they are. Looking at the O-line, I mean, there's not a ton of depth on the O-line either. O-line actually played really well. You got to feel good about that. Tight end's probably one of the few positions where you have any sort of depth other than quarterback, where maybe the 2 guys as good as the 1 guy. I don't know if we want to really delve into that. And the fact that Daniel Jones made a cameo, I thought that was brilliant on the part of the Giants. I'd like to see that happen more, tell you the truth, because here's what I walk away from week 1. They're not a playoff contender.
No.
They're in my opinion right now, there is 0% chance that the Giants could win a wild card. And you're starting Eli because it's not a rebuild, it's a build, and we think we're competitive enough. You're not. And I think week 2 will probably prove to the Giants they're definitely not. And I just wonder, look, I'm not, because it's not Eli's fault. They didn't get destroyed because of Eli, because Eli wasn't rushing the passer and he wasn't defending receivers. So this isn't Eli's fault. But I will say this, his inability to keep the offense on the field for a sustain, even when they score fast.
Yeah.
That's not good, because this defense doesn't need to be on the football field as often as they are. You're either going to score in 4 or 5 plays, or you're going to go 3 and out. Either way, that puts all the pressure on the weakest part of your team, the defense. So that's an issue. Watching this guy roll out of the pocket, and I love Eli. Nobody loves Eli more than I do. I was willing to go all in again this year with Beckham and Eli, and they blew it for me. This is not a good enough team to make the playoffs. I got to start. I want to see Daniel Jones at the end of every game. Here's the other stupid thing that Shermer did, and why I think Shermer's such a moron. You put this kid in the game. You try to run a 2-minute offense. As if you were going to score kicking onside. I mean, come on. Idiotic. Put the kid in the game. Give the full playbook. As it was, you had to run a 2-minute offense and huddle up, which was idiotic. And I understand, again, he doesn't know enough to have run it without being in the no huddle. It wasn't going to make a difference. You put the kid in the game. You give the full playbook. He doesn't have to throw on every down.
No.
Let him run some plays. Let him get some real experience. That would have made so much more sense than what they did do. Glad he made his first appearance. I'm glad we got it out of the way. I don't want Daniel Jones starting next week or the week after that. I'm fine with running Eli out there, but I think at this point the development of Daniel Jones to become the starter. I think that's got to be implemented now. I think in practice, this kid should start getting some first-team reps with Eli standing right there coaching him through it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, this is going to be a waste of a season. I'll go back on what I said before. I think this is a 3-13 team.
That's rough.
I love the Giants. I'm going to sit through every stupid game. Yep. But this is not a good enough team. This team's going to be hard pressed to outscore other teams because the offense isn't good enough. I mean, when's the last time they scored 30 in a game? We're going on like 3 years since they put up those kind of numbers. They're going to give up a lot of points. They're not going to score a lot of points. And last time I checked, with scoring and all that, that's how you win football games. So I don't know what the recipe is. You're going to catch somebody with a quarterback out or loses a quarterback in the first. I don't know what it's going to take, but I don't see how the Giants are going to reel off a bunch of wins. I don't see it.
Yeah.
And I hate saying it, believe me, but I don't want to be the Debbie Downer of the group.
Yeah. Well, I think 3-13 is a bit rough.
Yeah.
Especially this is week 1. That's a pretty hard downslope. But, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The problem was the outside the pocket. Even Daniel Jones didn't look too good as he lost the football with a fumble. Mm-hmm. So, Eli Manning, if you didn't watch the game, you look at the box score, Eli Manning, 30 for 44, 306 yards and a touchdown. That's not that bad. But the not using Saquon Barkley, only 11 carries, is a lot. And then if you did see the plays where Eli Manning was outside the pocket, I think the offensive line is good enough to where Eli Manning doesn't have to leave the pocket at all. You give a little quick check down throw to Saquon Barkley or launch it downfield like you want, but you don't need to be rolling out, and you're not a Lamar Jackson. You don't need to be doing this.
When his first option is covered, when he rolls out, the play is over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like your grandmother rolling out, Sean. She's not getting there, and nothing good is happening at this point. Stop rolling this guy. I was talking to some Patriots fan before. I'm like, they ever roll Brady out? And you go, nope. No. And he's a much more athletic and quicker guy than Eli is. When you roll Eli out on that naked boot, he is so exposed, and he does not have he's never had the skill set to deal with that. At this age now in his career, he most certainly doesn't. The 3rd one and 4th and 1 were, I don't know about you guys, I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
That embarrassed me. I felt bad for Eli that they put him in that spot and made him look so ridiculous.
Yeah, especially in a spot where they have 2 plays in a row, 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, in a game where Saquon only has 11 carries, where you don't give it to the best back in the league, behind an O-line who I think they had 8.9 yards per carry all game on a great Cowboys defense. They were pushing up front.
Only one sack allowed.
Yeah, only 1 sack allowed, which is the play where Eli rolls out, and he had all day pretty much to throw behind that O-line. The O-line looked really good, but I just think it comes to, I mean, they got to know what you're working with Eli. You can't have him roll out on these stupid plays that are just, they're deficient to what the Giants are trying to do, especially in that point of the game, in that area where you have... You could score 7 points, 3 points right there, and you come away with nothing. It's not good.
A buddy of mine said that he thought that maybe for Shermer, 3rd and 1, obviously going to hand it to Saquon, that maybe he starts overthinking it, and it's like, you know what? I'll run play action, and we'll roll. What?
Yeah.
I mean, right? Wouldn't you much rather have seen Barkley 3rd and 1, go up the middle, he gets stuffed? I'd run it again. I bet you don't stop him twice in a row.
No.
I'd love to see that. But that would have made infinitely more sense. Again, I'm not sure what Shermer's doing. I'm not sure if he really has a firm grasp of his team. Because, again, to hear him after the game, man, he sounded like they were just a couple of little tweaks away from being a Super Bowl contender. And they're like, no, sir. So I'm more concerned about Pat Shurmur's abilities as a head coach than I am about, because the defense stinks, and I get that. We talked about you needing like 5 or 6 guys to kind of come of age really quickly. Mm-hmm. And we knew it wasn't going to be in week 1. We were a little hopeful that, maybe the Giants could pull out one of these, week 1 miracles against the Cowboys, but it was bad.
Yeah,
it was really bad, and really for me more than anything though was the curious play calling of Pat Shurmur. I'm not sure I understood it. Why Eli's throwing 44 times is beyond me.
Yeah, I think it had to do with the game flow, just because they were playing catch up the whole game and that they were down. That's why why they were passing the ball so much. Why?
Yeah, but you let the game get out of hand because you weren't running the football.
Yeah,
so you're right. What created that problem? He did, and then he forced his own hand into throwing the ball. Like that's not a good strategy.
Yeah. And the Giants defense was on field pretty much for the whole first half. The Cowboys almost doubled the time of possession in the first half. So, and especially a young defense like that, like we said, where we expect them to but hopefully get at least half of them to step up and have huge years. But we did not see any of that in the first game.
Yeah. Pat Shurmur is definitely, I don't want to say it's on the hot seat, but that was not a good performance by him. Mm-hmm. People are crucifying Eli Manning for it, but him rolling out, that's not on him. That's the play calling. Him losing his primary target, that's on the play calling. When you're the coach, you have to go to the quarterback. You have to say, this is your first read, this is your second read, so on and so forth. If he's rolling out and the one person's covered and it's shot, that's all on the coach. And like I said, the O-line only let up 1 sack against a good, I don't want to say phenomenal, a good Cowboys defensive line, especially DeMarcus Lawrence is a beast. But you can't, it's just, it frustrates me so much. There is a good offensive line doing very well, and you're putting Eli in bad positions. It's not going to work.
So Remmers allowed 4 hurries, no hits. Zeitler 1 hit, 3 hurries. Halapayo 1 hit, no hurries. Solder 1 hit, 1 hurry, and Hernandez 0 and 0. And you're right. The offensive line played great. Mm-hmm. And again, this isn't to start knocking Eli, because I'm not doing that. But last year, everybody said, or the defender said, the offensive line was the problem, not Eli. And now it's not the offensive line. Yeah. And even looking at his numbers, as you mentioned before, Jay, it wasn't Eli. So what is the problem? Again, I'm looking at Pat Shurmur and that stupid face you just want to slap. He's got that like rat face, and it drives me nuts. And I think he is either clueless or delusional, and I don't know which one's worse.
Yeah, if you look at Eli in the past couple years, he has been the check down guy. He's even under Ben McAdoo, it made perfect sense what he was doing in his progression. He would look down the field, he'd look for Odell, he'd look for Sterling Shepard, if not, check down. Now we have an actual good running back. He goes through his progressions. I don't know what the progressions are, but he's throwing check downs to other receivers, tight ends that aren't getting him anything. So Pat Shurmur is definitely the guy. And I spoke about DeMarcus Lawrence. He's a good player. We stopped him though. But did you guys see the video of him, I think it was prior to the game, dissing the little kid wearing a Saquon Barkley jersey? That is... A part of me likes it because it is like the spirit of competition, but also it's a little kid, man.
Yeah, and if that's like Saquon or Sterling Shepard, who is a great role model and just a great people, I think they're wearing a Cowboys jersey, I think they go up and sign it. But like you said, I understand it, the competitiveness, the NFC East, Cowboys, Giants. There's nothing better than that rivalry. So I could see where D-Law is coming from, but just sign the freaking thing, man.
Kid.
Yeah.
He's a kid.
Yeah.
You're a man. Act like it. Come on.
All right. Now, week 2, we got the Bills. It's our home opener. The Bills just played at MetLife. They stole a win, to be honest with you. Jets had that, I think, and then C.J. Mosley went down, really hurt the Jets' defense. But the Bills didn't look like a world beater. This definitely looks like a winnable game for the Giants. What are you guys thinking?
I think there's definitely some optimism going into week 2 in a home game. I think that Josh Allen, he's a great athlete, and maybe he could turn into a solid QB in the NFL one day, but he had 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles lost in the Jets game. So he's a turnover machine. He threw more interceptions than he did touchdowns last year. So I think that's one place where the Giants could take advantage and step up this week, try and get a couple turnovers to give back to the offense. And so we can control the clock, get Saquon more carries. And again, the Bills defense, they are a pretty good defense, but it's not like we didn't just see a good defense and handle them for the most part going up and down the field. So I like our chances this week. I think that we can get a couple turnovers from Josh Allen, give the offense more of a chance to get the run game established so we can move into our play action and passing game from there. So I think there's definitely optimism for this week.
I said the Jets stunk going into this season. I don't think Darnold's a great quarterback. And I even feel more strongly. I actually watched most of that Jets game. The problem is, Sean, you make a great point. The Giants, if they could create some turnovers, that would certainly go a long way towards winning this game. I'm just curious who you think's going to create those turnovers, because from what I've seen, there's no defensive playmakers. Janoris Jenkins looks lost, and Baker was overmatched. And I'm really concerned about this team. If they can't get any pressure and they can't force Josh Allen to make bad throws, they're not going to get turnovers. They're not the kind of team that, where when they go for a sack, you don't see the strip sack. I never see when they're tackling. I never see the Giants try to strip balls out. So I don't know where these magical turnovers are going to come. It'd be great to get some. It's obviously the key to winning in this league. Josh Allen is a young guy who maybe is prone to mistakes, but I'm just not sure who would be on the receiving end of the mistakes. And that's my biggest concern going here into week 2. I assume that we'll see more balls in Saquon's hand, but I would have thought that in week 1. So I'm not sold yet on these New York Football Giants. I'm excited that it's a home game. I wish Buffalo wasn't literally just coming off a game at MetLife. Yeah. I mean, that's not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're kind of losing some of that whole home field advantage, and it's a stadium the Bills obviously already have known for a while. So take some of that away. Plus, it's another New York team that's actually building a nice fan base because they've got a pretty good young team there.
Yeah.
So, and the Bills are actually favored 2.5 on the road against the Giants, and I saw that was first time the Bills are favored on the road, and I think it was 4 or 5 years. So it's definitely not good for the odds.
That's what I'm saying. That right? I mean, as a Giants fan, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
This team's got some good pieces, and they've got some good young talent. I'm just not sure if 17 weeks is going to be enough time, as Shermer said, for these things to kind of click and everything is good. I just don't know. To me, it's possible Buffalo could blow the Giants out this week. I know. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I told you guys last week, this is a hard team to gauge. And I'm not an overreactor. Like I said, the defense was bad. Was it that horrible? Well, the jury's still. I remember a couple years back there, they gave up 70 points in the first 2 games, and that team, I think, went 10-6. So it's possible to turn things around. It would help if they were playmakers and established veterans that you could sort of rely on, but I don't know that there are. And so that's where I'm at.
See,
I'm sucking the air out of the room with the things I'm saying, and I don't mean to.
I think this is more of an actual test. The Cowboys definitely this season are a Super Bowl contending team, and the Giants are far from that. Bills, they're not even close to winning their division, let alone going to the Super Bowl. So I think this is an actual test. We will see the actual Giants, how good the actual Giants are. And the thing with the Bills is you can depend on them to shoot themselves in the foot. Mm-hmm. They always turnovers are a lot, like you said. Josh Allen, 4 total turnovers in 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So, and the Jets' defense isn't a world beater. They aren't one of the best defenses in the league. So I think this is a solid. We got really low off the Cowboys loss. This is one to pick us back up. A nice confidence booster. Do we win? I don't know. I think it will be tough. I'm rooting for them. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means. I think it's going to be close. But I do expect the Giants to do well and this game to actually be more competitive than week 1.
Yeah, I definitely seen it being more competitive than week 1. Just because, I mean, the Cowboys, I expected a closer game than it was, but I wasn't shocked at all to see the outcome. With the Bills, I expect more of a low-scoring game, between a low-scoring brawl between the two. And I see it being a tight game that the Giants could definitely end up winning.
I thought the Giants were going to beat the Cowboys. And when they took the opening drive and they scored, I thought, oh, all right, I like what I see. And then for the next 40 minutes, it was a disaster. It was like the Hindenburg over and over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from. I was so optimistic. I had such a feeling. I was like, this is the kind of game where the Giants pull one out in Dallas. Gah! Even if the Giants don't get blown out, I have a hard time. I mean, again, I think this could have been a 56-17 game. If Dallas wanted to, they could have run the score up. Mm-hmm. So let's consider that. So what's a closer game? I don't know. 28-20? Is that a good game? That's about where I have this going. I definitely think the Bills are going to beat the Giants this week. I think it's going to take the Giants probably 4 weeks to get a win.
Oh.
Does that hurt?
That does, especially if you look at
I hate saying it.
games.
I do.
The Buccaneers and Cardinals come week 3, week 4. I could see those being. I understand the Giants are at the top of the NFL, but the Cardinals and Bucs are right there hanging around with them in the lower 20s, maybe high 30s.
They'll win one of those games, not both.
But you could say that about the Bills. I think they have a realistic chance to win the 2 out of the next 3 against Bills, Bucs, and Cardinals.
I mean, we could start talking about our picks last week, and you could tell me what you think. But then again, I mean, only one of us pretty much nailed it.
Well, I was only 1 win behind.
That's
and I'll be honest,
can live with it. It's week 1.
If I hadn't picked with my heart on the Giants, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, I actually picked the Cowboys.
Yeah, I picked the Giants to be a homer, and that's what it got me. I would have had an even better week.
All right, let's talk about picks then.
I'll do it.
Everyone's week 1. Joe was in the lead, 11-4-1. I was 1 win behind with 10-5-1. Sean, man, 7-8-1.
I like it.
Rough.
I like it, bro. Bring it on. Bring all the haters. I'm looking forward to it.
He picked smart.
Titans over Browns.
He picked what should have really happened. You and I picked like from the gut.
Yeah.
He picked from his brain, and his brain was 7-8-1. The gut, that's where it's at, my man.
Yeah.
I had to switch it up a little bit this week strategy wise, but I'm coming back. I'm coming for that top spot.
All right, let's start off with week 2 picks. Go in from the game we just talked about, the Bills at the Giants. I'm letting you know now, when the Giants play the Patriots, I'm picking the Giants. 16 weeks, the only week I won't pick them is during their bye. I'm taking the Giants to beat the Bills.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. I have the Giants over the Bills in a week 2 win, getting that W on the board, getting to 500 and going from there. I think they really do have a good chance to beat the Bills. The one thing that I'm worried about is that Bills defense. They have a great secondary and a pretty good pass rush, but like what we saw in week 1, the Giants can handle that. They have a great O-line, and I think that Eli steps up this week and they win maybe late by a field goal or a touchdown.
I don't know what more Eli could step up to. I mean, he had a great game. Barkley still got over 100 yards. Obviously, that 59-yard run was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. This team just isn't going to be able to stop the Bills enough to win the game. It's the sad reality. I'm hoping, again, obviously with weeks 3 and 4, the competition isn't that great. Maybe that'll sort of, again, maybe some of these things could start to click. They could play a little bit better. I just have a hard time believing from what we just saw to this Sunday that you're going to see a team step up and rise to the occasion. I think the Bills take this one, and I think it's at least a 2-score game.
Wow. All right, that's rough.
Maybe 10, maybe a touchdown and a field goal when I say 2 scores. Or maybe a field goal and a safety. Maybe it's close. I don't know.
All right.
See if I can move those 2 scores around to fit what I want it to be, guys. That's how you pick.
All right. So now we got Thursday night football. The Bucks, who Joe said had a dream that would win by a field goal last week. Well, they are going to the Panthers, who looked really good against the Rams, who are coming off they have a Super Bowl hangover, I guess, if you want to call it that. But I think the Panthers played very well. I think the Rams did look tough, did have some struggles, but the Bucks just looked atrocious. The Panthers looked good. I'm going with Panthers.
Yeah, I agree on this one. I take the Panthers over the Bucks. The Bucks just didn't give me much to look forward to. Jameis Winston again looked terrible. He throws interceptions all over the place, and he doesn't have any control over what he's doing. And the Panthers defense looked really good, and McCaffrey obviously is a beast. Yeah. So I see the Panthers winning that game pretty handily.
I hate to just go along with what everybody else says, but, Howard's my tight end of my fantasy team, and he was underwhelming this week because Jameis Winston stinks, as do the entire Buccaneers team.
Jameis has to throw to his
and the organization. So I'll go with the Panthers winning their first one as well.
Okay. Now we got the team that beat the Bucks, the Niners. They're going to Cincinnati, who had a surprising game, really close one with the Seahawks. This is a tough one. I'm going Niners. When it's tough for me, I always go D, and the Niners have a solid defense.
I'm actually going Bengals on this one. I just think that they surprised a lot of people with their new offense and the new head coach coming in. Joe Mixon got hurt early in the game. They still were able to hang around with the Seahawks. So I think that their offense can surprise a lot of people. And the 49ers just lost Tevin Coleman, their top running back. So I could see the Bengals winning this game in a tight one.
I was just going to say the Niners running game's a bit of a disaster right now. I just, again, you got to be able to move the football. Garoppolo, was very underwhelming, in my opinion. I think that the Bengals will pull this one out. I think they'll win. I think asking San Francisco to win a game like this on the road, I don't think they're good enough for that yet.
Okay. Now we got the Chargers, who won a tough one against the Colts, going on to the tie, one half of the tie that happened this week in the Lions. It's at Detroit. I'm going to go with the Lions home. They got a tough defense. I understand that the Chargers offense is really, really good, but I think the Lions will be able to hold them, and they will tough one out and get the W in Detroit.
Yeah, I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people think, with the Lions hanging around with the Chargers. But I still pick Chargers over Lions in this one just because their offense is overwhelming. They have so many weapons. The Lions' defense is good, but I just don't think they have enough answers on offense. So I'm going to go with the Chargers on this one.
I think with Gordon being out, and who knows how long he is going to be out, whether he sits the season or comes back in Week 10. Yeah. Again, I think you saw, the guys filling in for him didn't get the job done. I think they're going to have a hard time at the Silverdome. I think the Lions' defense is good enough. I'm going to take the Lions in this one.
All right.
Did you not see Austin Eckler this week? Scoring 40 points in fantasy?
That's great. What does that mean?
He stepped up from Melvin Gordon.
That's so? He's going to do it again?
I think he can contend and be up there with the RB1s for
I don't think
the
so.
remainder of the season. When he's been given touches,
flash in the pan.
no, I don't. I think that when he's been given touches in the past, he just hasn't got a lot of volume. So he's had like over 5 yards per carry. He's great out of the backfield. So I think he's a big sleeper going down the line for the rest of the season.
I think he's good. I had him as one of my must starts last week, but the Lions defense is really good. So I think that will cancel each other out.
That's fair.
And without Derwin James for the Chargers, I think Matt Stafford is going to throw the football to that TJ Hawkinson kid, who is another one of my must-starts for week 1, who did phenomenal.
Good call.
And then we got another game in the Lions division, the Vikings at the Packers. Vikings look really good against the Falcons, whose offense is always good. I'm picking the Vikings in a defensive battle to just destroy the Packers. I don't think they can contend.
Okay. I'm going to go Packers over Vikings in this one. I just think the Packers defense looked very impressive against the Bears on that Thursday night opening. The Vikings, they only passed the ball 10 times in their game, which was a little bit concerning, I think. I don't think you could depend on the run that much against definitely a front seven that's much improved with the Packers. And I think that the Packers end up scoring a lot more points this week than they did against a tough Bears defense. I know that the Vikings defense is very good as well, but also they're going into Lambeau, so I don't expect the Vikings to come out with that win. I think the Packers win it. Aaron
Rodgers was very underwhelming.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen often. And it's certainly not going to happen this week. At Lambeau, I'm going Packers all the way in this one.
All right.
It's an easy call.
Yeah.
And then the Colts, who had a tough one in Los Angeles against the Chargers, go to Tennessee, who looked phenomenal, destroying the Browns. Everyone had hyped up. I'm picking Tennessee to keep the train rolling and beat the Andrew Luckless Colts.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. I have the Titans over the Colts. Their defense is a lot better than people think. Their secondary is very good. And I think that Marcus Mariota surprised a lot of people this week after having two pretty poor seasons the past 2 years. He came out and he looked pretty good. So I like that Titans team over the Colts offense.
The thing about the Colts is I thought Brissett played well. Mm-hmm. Mack was amazing. Yeah. Tennessee, right? What they did to Cleveland, it was surprising. It was humbling. And maybe Marcus Mariota's finally the guy. I don't know why. I just have a really weird feeling right now that I don't think Tennessee at home is going to rise to the challenge. I'm going to do it. I'm doing it.
All right.
I'm going to Colts.
I did it last week. I'm going
to do it.
Close.
I don't know why. It's
so close.
Probably not a good idea. I don't something's telling me take the Colts.
I mean, the Malik Hooker, I don't know if you guys saw that interception one-handed. That was beautiful, but that was all that really went well for the Colts. Then I think this one's going to be easy. Patriots go to Miami. The Dolphins got destroyed by the Bengals. The Pats destroyed the Steelers. Pats, easy dub here.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go into explanation for this one. I'm just going to pick the Patriots over the Dolphins.
I don't think anything needs to be said. I mean, yeah. I think even if Tom Brady didn't play, I would still take the Patriots. And with Tom Brady not playing, if the quarterback were the ball boy, I would probably still take the Patriots. Yeah. So going Pats here.
And this is also AB's first game with the Pats.
Yep.
We spoke about him last week, having all of his problems with the Raiders. Then he gets in a fight with the GM, ends up getting his 29 of his 30 mil guaranteed voided, asks for a release, gets released, then signed to the Pats, and now he's got a legal issue about alleged sexual. Yeah. Nothing's going well.
Yeah, we could have done a whole show just on Antonio Brown in the past week if we wanted to, really. Yeah. That's just how much has been going wrong with him lately.
Yeah, but I think he will have a phenomenal debut, especially against the Dolphins. And then we got the Seahawks, who squeaked out a win over the Bengals, going to Pittsburgh, who looked terrible and got destroyed by the Pats, kicking a field goal to make a 3-score game stay a 3-score game. Yeah. I after what I saw Sunday night from the Steelers, you got to go Seahawks, even though it is at home.
Yeah, I took the Seahawks as well. While I don't think the Steelers will be as bad as they showed on Sunday night, just because the Patriots have a great game planning defense, I think that the Seahawks still come in and win this game. Chris Carson looks really solid week 1. I think their running game is really good. And obviously they have Russell Wilson. And the Steelers defense didn't look that great against. Obviously, it's a great Patriots defense, but I'm going to pick the Seahawks in this one.
Russell Wilson, who is my starting fantasy quarterback, was extremely underwhelming. Mm-hmm. However, the chances of the Steelers starting a season 0-2 is something I'm grappling with. Is it possible? Could Pittsburgh start 0-2? And then I think, again, is Russell Wilson going to have another pitiful performance? Barely ran the ball at all. And I don't think the Steelers are as bad as they looked, but I have a hard time believing that team could come up with a win after the beatdown they just took, and that applies to both the Giants and the Steelers.
And then the Cowboys go to the Redskins. Redskins looked impressive. Vernon Davis took a sip from the fountain of youth with a big game against the Eagles, but the Cowboys just look so good against the Giants, and the Redskins are the Redskins, so I'm going Cowboys.
Yeah, I think the Redskins defense is definitely a lot better than the Giants defense. I don't think the Cowboys will score as many points, but I still expect Cowboys to win big over the Redskins. And I don't expect Case Keenum to play as well as he did, throwing for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions against a pretty good Eagles defense. I don't expect that to carry over into week 2. So, yeah, I see the Cowboys winning pretty big.
I hate the Redskins. And I hate the Cowboys, okay?
Agreed.
And I hate the Eagles. I watched the Eagles-Redskins game last week because I'm in one of those suicide pools. And, of course, I picked the Eagles. And when they were getting destroyed, I just knew that the Redskins were going to blow it. I will tell you this. I think the Redskins at home... And I thought Case Keenum looked as good as he's ever looked before. Mm-hmm. And I love the idea that Adrian Peterson's going to get some touches this week. He was a healthy scratch last week. I tell you what.
Uh-oh.
This is my upset of the week.
All right.
The Skins are taking out the Cowboys. Mark my words.
Wow.
I don't think Joe's going to be the number one that much longer.
Come on. You don't think it could happen?
I could see it happening. I don't think it will.
It's a trap game. Doesn't it feel like a trap game? Again,
kind of.
The Cowboys are riding high.
Yeah.
And if you're the Redskins, you had that game and you blew it against the Eagles. That's the mindset. Yeah. But see, the Redskins walked away thinking, hey, we're pretty good. We got to finish. We're pretty good. I think the Cowboys left the Giants game overestimating how good they are. And I think this week, the Skins are going to punch them in the mouth.
Yeah. I just don't think the Redskins have enough talent on offense. I think that the Giants are actually more talented on offense than the Redskins, just because their running backs, after Darius Geis went down, they have good depth there, but their receivers, they're a bunch of no-names pretty much. So, and I don't see them beating that Cowboys secondary all game. I think it has a chance to be a close game. I don't see the Redskins.
If Adrian Peterson was playing and they could have handed him the ball with that big lead, they would have won that game. I would have lost in the suicide league, so it worked out. But I'm telling you, Adrian Peterson is a guy I've long admired. Last year, I correctly predicted that 60-yard run he broke off to put the game away against the Giants. I think that guy still got a lot of yards to gain in his career, and I think, being a healthy scratch obviously hurt that guy pretty bad.
Yeah.
I think he comes back with a vengeance this week. He's going to be a big part of the game plan, supposedly. I think if that's the case, and as good as Keenum looked, I think this is one of those games where I think you're going to be very surprised.
All right.
He's not
I'm
buying
excited.
it. He's like, yeah, all right, sure.
Okay. We got a interesting one. Cardinals at the Ravens. Ravens annihilated the Dolphins. And the Cardinals were able to bring it back against the Lions to force a tie. I think the Ravens looked really good, and especially after the Browns lulls, I think the Ravens are the favorite to win that division right now, so I'm going with the Ravens over the Cardinals at home.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I have the Ravens over the Cardinals. Obviously, they have very good defense, good pass rush, and then Lamar Jackson looked great. He got protected great, too. That's why he wasn't running around the field all day. And I was impressed with Kyler Murray, the late comeback against the Lions. I thought that was a good sign for the Cardinals heading into the season, but I just think that the Ravens will overpower the Cardinals in this one.
Larry Fitzgerald, by the way, 8 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. I thought he looked great. Kyler Murray is my backup quarterback of my fantasy team, and he blew Russell Wilson out of the water for points this week. Almost thought about starting him, but then I thought to myself, you're in Baltimore. And I don't think Baltimore... I think the Dolphins are the worst team in football.
Yeah.
Yep.
Check. I think they're the worst team in professional sports right now. Okay. And that's a whole other thing.
It's up there.
There's no way Baltimore's going to lose to a rookie at home coming off the win that they just had. I don't see it. I think Kyler Murray is awesome. And I think that kid's definitely going to turn that franchise around probably quick, but it ain't going to be in week 2. Not in Baltimore.
All right, and then we got the Jaguars at the Texans. Both you and me, Sean, picked the Jags to pull off the upset against the Chiefs last week. We were unsuccessful. They lost their QB in Nick Foles. Now they don't. I don't even remember who their QB is. It's a
Gardner Minshew.
Yeah,
he was
Washington
phenomenal.
State, yeah.
He got off to a super hot start. He was great. Dude, 22-25. That's Phil Simms in Super Bowl 20, baby.
Yeah.
That's some impressive numbers for a guy who didn't even sniff any first-team reps.
You want to talk about an impressive quarterback, though? Deshaun Watson looked great against the Saints on Monday Night Football. And especially when you're throwing to DeAndre Hopkins, I'm taking the Texans to win it.
Yeah, I'm also taking the Texans. I think that it has a chance to be a high-scoring game, but it's just tough to ask Gardner Minshew going to his first career NFL start and go down and beat the Texans, an offense that proved that they can put a lot of points up on the board. And they had the scare with Deshaun Watson scoring that touchdown in the end zone when he was holding for his back, but luckily and hopefully he'll be good going into week 2. But yeah, I like the Texans to win this one.
I think Antonio Brown and Odell Beckham should take a look at DeAndre Hopkins and
for sure
take lessons from how to act and be a stud. Because this guy, as good as he is as good a human being.
Yeah.
He's your dream receiver. I loved Deshaun Watson, loved him in college. I knew he was going to be a big-time NFL player. Jacksonville is awful. They weren't going to be great with Nick Foles, which I don't know why people thought that. I find it ironic that the super sub backup got hurt literally in his first start with his new team. I think you're right. And there's, Minshew. I think you see that sometimes in the NFL where you put a backup in and you haven't prepped for the guy and he has a ton of success. I think this week is going to be something like a 12 out of 30 for like 118 yards.
Little wake-up call.
I think Houston's going to annihilate Jacksonville this week, like something fierce.
Yeah, I mean, we all picked against Houston, and we almost all got that as a no. So, should be interesting. And then honestly, probably the most interesting game for me, the Chiefs at the Raiders. The Raiders looked phenomenal, even though they did just play the Broncos. And the Broncos aren't the best team. But they looked really good. Their offense looked really good. Josh Jacobs, who I have on all three of my fantasy teams, definitely came in the clutch for me. Going against the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and their offense is just phenomenal. Raiders did show some signs of weakness in their defense, and if you have any signs of weakness, the Chiefs are going to destroy. And I'm taking the Chiefs, even though they are in Oakland.
Yeah, like you said, the Chiefs will exploit the weaknesses that the Raiders provide. And there's definitely a lot of signs of hope for the Raiders. They looked a lot better than I would have thought. But the Chiefs' offense is way too good. I don't see the Raiders contending in this one. I think Chiefs win by probably around 3 touchdowns.
Like you, Jacobs and he was so good. But you know who else deserves a lot of credit? Terrell Williams, who stepped up in that WR1 spot and put up big numbers. I had him as my flex guy. He put me over the top for an easy win this week. I like the Raiders a lot. I think that's a really good football team. I think they're going to be better than people think they're going to be, but not this week. I think the Chiefs just have way too much going on. So I'm gonna go KC on this one.
Yeah, and also the Raiders are losing Garen Conley, tough, having to get carted off the field Monday night due to a neck injury that he suffered after falling into his own teammate, Jonathan Abram, who's also injured now. So defense is looking rough, and when your defense has holes, the Chiefs find a way to exploit them. And then we got the Bears at the Broncos in Denver. The altitude always comes into a factor, but I don't think it will mean anything as the Bears get the dub against the Broncos.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. The Broncos offense just looked terrible on Monday night, and I don't think they have any chance to put up any points against the Bears. And while the Bears offense didn't show a lot of hope, only scoring 3 points, I think they kind of find their rhythm and get scoring week 2, and I think they win easily over the Broncos.
People tell me I'm wrong about this all the time, but I think Mitch Trubisky is garbage. I don't think he's a good enough quarterback. I think as bad as Flacco and the Broncos looked, I think a mile high. I think they're going to play a mile better, and I'm going Broncos.
Wow.
All right. Well, I mean, I think the Bears and the Giants offenses both had similar woes, as the Bears run game looked really good with David Montgomery, and especially now that they're going up against a team that just had a huge rookie running back, Josh Jacobs, go off. I think David Montgomery might go off for the Bears. Now we got the Saints at the Rams, a revenge game for the Saints after that horrible call in the NFC Championship game. But I don't think they get it done, even though it is a revenge game. If it were in New Orleans, I might think different, but I'm going with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going with the Saints on this one. I think their offense obviously looked really good. Everyone expected them to be a great offense, but I mean, they just have so many weapons all over the field. Rams lose a little pass rush in the offseason. I think that it showed a little bit in the Panthers game, giving up a lot of points. So I think that Saints put up a whole lot of points, and I expect them to actually win pretty big over the Rams, maybe 2 touchdowns, I would say.
All right.
Really?
Yep.
So I've got a predicament personally this show aside for a minute. My two defenses are literally the Rams and the Saints.
Wow.
And I've got the Rams starting. You think I got to change that?
I would go ahead and change that.
I would never start a defense that's taking on the Saints.
Well, yeah, that's also true. I probably wouldn't start a defense that's playing the Saints or the Rams. I would probably look to the waiver wire for that.
Yeah, you think so? Because I feel like
there's going to be a lot of points scored in that game.
I don't know. Is Jared Goff that good?
That I do not know.
I think you're better off starting the Saints defense because the offense of New Orleans is just so good. You know that's always going to be consistent. And if you have to take a defense to stop them, I think the New Orleans defense.
I got Kamara too. He's my running back.
Nice.
So I should probably. I think I'm going to go Saints.
All right.
I'm going all in on the Saints. That's what I'm doing. Thank you, boys. Back to the show.
All right. And then for Sunday night football, the Eagles at the Falcons. Falcons looked rough against a tough defense, and the Eagles look rough against a mediocre team in the Redskins. I do think that the Eagles will edge it out and get the victory here. Carson Wentz looked really good, even though the Eagles didn't look good in the first half. But I do think the Eagles will get it done against the Falcons team that does not have good defense.
Yeah, I agree with you on this one. I have the Eagles over the Falcons. I just think that the Falcons get so much hype every year, and everyone thinks that they're going to be great going into this year, but then they always upset. I feel like I just don't expect them to have a huge season. Obviously, the offense is pretty good, but they only end up scoring 12 points last week, and they're going in to play a tough Eagles defense. So I think that the Eagles get the win over the Falcons because the Eagles offense looked really good in the second half, I thought.
Yeah.
I'm so torn on this game. Like I said, I picked the Eagles last week in my suicide pool, and really until Deshaun Jackson went like 5 years ago and it's just started. I mean, that was fun to watch. I'm so torn though because it's in Atlanta.
Yeah.
It's the Dome. It's a tough place to win. As good as the Eagles are, I'm doing it. I'm gonna go with the Falcons to win one at home.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going back and forth, but
Tough.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to scold you over that like I did the Redskins. That is tough. And then Monday Night Football, the Browns look to redeem themselves as they go to MetLife to take on the Jets. I think the Browns bounce back here. I still am on the Browns hype train, even though they did get destroyed by the Titans. I think they still will do pretty good. So I'm taking the Browns in New York or in East Rutherford.
Yeah, I have the Browns winning this one. I think that they get off to a slow start again and everyone starts to panic. You know, Browns are going 0-2. But then I think that they finally start to find their groove. Baker gets them down the field in a game-winning drive, and I think they end up winning late in that game. Browns over Jets.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Back to MetLife.
That's my guy. Back at the Met. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's I don't know. The script seems to be all there. He didn't have a great first week. He had 7 catches.
71.
A little underwhelming, from the fantasy points angle, but obviously the watch was pretty dope. What do you guys think of that watch?
Yeah, he was flexing out there.
He's great. I think he comes back. I think he has 12 catches this week. I think he'll have a touchdown. I think he'll do something crazy in the end zone. I think that in professional sports, there's 2 teams I truly, truly hate, and their names rhyme. The Mets and the Jets.
Okay.
I'm going with the Browns this week, and I feel really good about that. Also, and this is mostly for Steve Risser, but Sam Darnold, not a good quarterback. I said it.
All right.
He's losing his mind right now.
Shots fired.
How dare you? He's the best.
I think everyone was all hype on the Odell Beckham watch. An underrated flex this opening weekend. Alvin Kamara had grills in. No one really noticed that until I saw it today. Scrolling through the Instagram, he had grills in, gold teeth, so that was pretty dope. Mm-hmm. Now let's talk some fantasy football. The top performers of the week. I got you guys. The perfect lineup was Dak Prescott at QB with 36 points PPR, even though he doesn't receive the ball. Then for your RBs, Christian McCaffrey had 42. Austin Eckler had 38. Wide receiver Sammy Watkins looked phenomenal with 46 points. Deshaun Jackson, 35. Evan Ingram was the top fantasy tight end with 28 points.
By the way, if you're not an Eagles fan, tell me anybody had Deshaun Jackson on their fantasy team. Only stupid Eagles fans did. And it worked out well for them this week.
Yeah, you could always count on him for some 50-yard touchdown throughout the season.
I think it's just revenge games for him at this point.
Yeah.
Any team he's already played on, expect 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he has so many revenge games.
Yeah. And then defensively, the Niners put up 28 points against the Bucs. Some key performers I have here. Lamar Jackson, I picked him to be as one of my must-starts for week 1. He had 32 points. John Ross III, he is still in. I got him on all 3 of my leagues off the waiver wire today. If you are struggling, people are thinking that week 1, 34 points is a rarity and it's not going to happen again. Pick him up if you're struggling. Who knows? He might be phenomenal. Then Marquise Hollywood Brown, 30 points. Couldn't find him today on the waiver wire. Everyone scooped him up. And then another guy I talked about last week, TJ Hawkinson, 25 points. The most receiving yards by a rookie, period, for a tight end. It was great. And then Josh Jacobs, most people have him. If you didn't start him, you missed out. 23 points. Who do you guys have? Who did you guys impress by week 1 fantasy wise?
Definitely Austin Eckler. I had him in my team, stepping in for Melvin Gordon. He had a huge week. Also, DeAndre Hopkins had a huge game. Yeah. Obviously, that's as expected, being one of the best receivers in the league. But he came up big for me. I think he scored 33 points. Those are 2 I could think of off the top of my head. But, yeah, those are the 2 that I could think of.
You know who I thought played great, put up 23.5 points, was Terry McLaurin, Ohio State guy for the Washington Redskins. Healthy, really made some great plays down the field, had a couple of long receptions. I immediately went to the waiver wire to grab that guy because I thought he was great. I mentioned Terrell Williams earlier.
Yeah.
I think that's a guy he was going to be a number 2 receiver going into the season. I think he was somebody certainly underlooked. Obviously, Deshaun Jackson had such a great week. My guy this week, I'll say it. I said it before. I say it again. I think Adrian Peterson is a guy that you better get on your rosters in your fantasy leagues because that guy's angry and he's really good still. And Kyler Murray. I'm not going to put Kyler Murray in my starting lineup this week only because of Baltimore. But if Russell doesn't get his act together, I think I think he's going to be a starter. He was phenomenal. A rough start, but finished pretty strongly. And again, Jacoby Jacobs, man, so excited about that. I was really concerned about the Raiders. I went into that game needing big games from Jacobs and Williams to win the week, and they were both phenomenal. So, I think the best part of fantasy football is even when you have teams that aren't good, at least there's something to care about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that feels good.
You're right. And that has definitely been the sentiment for the past couple years. My must starts this week, Lamar Jackson again against the Cardinals. He's looking to have himself a day. I don't know if Hollywood Brown and Andrews, who is stopped his tight end, will have the same, but I think Lamar Jackson definitely will. And like I mentioned earlier, David Montgomery, another rookie running back, against the Broncos. I think he looked really good against the Packers, and then the Bears decided, hey, let's just throw the ball. But especially in a close game, I think David Montgomery is going to earn his starting spot and earn his role as a key player on the offense. I also have Jamison Crowder against the Browns. If you are in a PPR league, Jamison Crowder's big. The most targeted most targeted wide receiver for Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold does like to throw the ball. And for a tight end, I got Austin Hooper against the Eagles. You saw Vernon Davis have a day against the Eagles. I can see Austin Hooper doing well against the Eagles as well.
Yeah, for quarterback this week, I went with Tom Brady going to play the Dolphins. Tom Brady usually doesn't get a lot of love in fantasy just because he doesn't provide much with his legs, but going into such a favorable matchup, and after scoring so many points against the Steelers, I think he carries on into week 2 and performs well again. Running back, I had Josh Jacobs, like we were talking about, going to play the Chiefs. It's going to be a very high-scoring game, so I expect his volume to be up a lot. I expect him to have a big week. Wide receiver, we were talking about Odell making his return to MetLife. I think in his first game back at MetLife, he has a huge game in which the Browns kind of turn their season around early and get over that week 1 loss, and he has a big week. And for tight end, I went with Zach Ertz. One of the best tight ends in the league. He had sort of a quiet week in week 1, but he's going to play a Falcons defense that isn't the best, especially against tight ends. So I like him this week.
Juju Smith-Schuster, by the way, has a toe injury. It's questionable. He's going to play. Kind of an underwhelming first game.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw that out there because I had high hopes. Going into that.
I think a lot of people had high hopes. I think almost too high for Juju just because he had great numbers last year, but a lot of that has to do with he was going against the second best corner most games just because Antonio Brown is on the other side. I still think Juju's a great receiver, maybe top 15 in the league, but I don't think he's as close to top 5, top 10 as people think.
Also, O.J. Howard, very underwhelming week, and I think obviously as bad as Jameis Winston is, he's a guy who, I think most fantasy people were expecting a breakout, and I'm just not sure if Winston's going to be able to keep up his end of the bargain.
Yeah,
there.
He's got to throw the ball to his team.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
been a problem.
Same with Mike Evans. I had Mike Evans only 4 points last week. So, yeah, Jameis has to get his stuff together. That's going to be it for the show. Thank you guys for listening. You can follow us on Facebook at Jawing About the G-Men, as well as on Twitter at Jawing About G-Men.
Correct. I couldn't fit the part. My bad.
Shucks.
All right. And we hope to see you guys next week. Take care.